Right, let's get this going, okay? This will do. So, yesterday's presentation was everything neurological. So it was everything about how the brain learns, interprets the body. We looked at the cerebellum and how that communicates with the frontal cortex and the muscles in around it. And oh, rude, let me turn that off. Okay. And then this one, we're going to flow on from it, okay? So part 2 is understanding movement, all right? What we're going to look at is the physical side of it. So what our muscles, joints, and certain different training modalities actually do to our physical body, not so much the brain. For you guys that were here last night watching Neuro, this will make a lot of sense building on from that. If you haven't watched it yet, it's perfectly fine. When you go back to watch it, it'll still click and make sense. All right? It doesn't have to be in order. I'm not that kind of guy. Okay. So if there's any questions, just jot them into that chat box. I've got the chat screen on mine. So pull me up at any point. I'll be happy to stop, have a little conversation about it. So I like that. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk a whole heap of shit. Kicking on. All right, so understanding movement. What we'll get out of this presentation is something called open and closed chain exercise. All right, what the differences are and how the benefits are. We're going to look at, let's get Jax in here. Nice and fashionably late, Jax. How are we? Mobility and stability continuum. That's been a really big focus of mine my whole career. I really love the relationship between mobility and stability, how to gain it and keep it. And then we're going to go back to looking at aging through different stages of movement acquisition and where fitness has led you wrong. We're also going to look at its how these styles of movement affect you in the long run, okay, which I find quite cool. Let's move on. Okay, so open and closed chain exercises, all right, 2 different parts, okay? So pretty much that picture off to the right really explains it, right? You got the bench press and push up. Ideally the same movement visually, right? Both the torso's long and strong, and it's just the arms moving. So chest exercise, ideally. But inside the body, how it attacks the joints and the muscles is actually completely different, all right? So an open chain exercise, all right, it's where the limbs move, the body doesn't, okay? It pushes the joint surfaces away from each other, right? You can lift more weight through the muscles, okay? Closed chain exercise, your body moves, that's meant to say your limbs move, but your body doesn't, typo there. Your limbs stay, your body moves. So think the push-up, sorry. It pushes the joint surfaces together, which is what we want. The stabilizers within the joint pull it in, and then the global muscles move it around it. You lift less weight through the muscles, but it's better for the joint health. All right, so not one's better than the other, all right, but hold on a second. But if your majority of your workouts are open chain exercise, like the bench press and machine weights, kind of like that, it will have long-term negative effects, all right? So what we're looking at is an open chain exercise. It's not the best choice as your primary focus, as it wears the joints down. It's a great way to get a large amount of weight through that muscle in that particular joint. All right, so if you're trying to get a lot of weight through the tendons for long-term tendon health, muscular size, so hypertrophy and strength, open chains you go to. All right, but you need the closed chain to keep everything healthy, okay? A closed chain is a style of movement that uses stabilizers to hold the joint, then the global muscles, like your pec, your anterior shoulder, your triceps, all those sorts of things. It uses those muscles to move it, right? Where the open chain in the bench press doesn't use too many stabilizers within the joint. So it wears down the joint a lot quicker, all right? It makes a closed chain exercise, the push-up, makes a calorie requirement a lot higher and with the extra muscles used. Therefore, it feels harder, all right? And that's where a lot of adults don't pay much attention to closed chain exercises, because you'll fatigue on push-ups very quickly in comparison to the weight that you'd move on the bench press. So think of a dude like, I come from competitive bodybuilding. Guess what I spent all my day on? Bench press, because my ego liked it. Really, ideally, I can lift more on the bench press. I can do my body weight push-ups. For me personally, it was the lat pull down. I could, on the machine, I worked at a commercial gym. Lat pull down machine, I was super strong, like ridiculously strong at it. When someone would say, all right, let's do some chin-ups, I'd be terrified because I could barely do 5. I was about 105, 108 kilos at the time. I could barely do 5 to 10 chin-ups. And it really got me thinking, like, why? It's the same movement. You're still doing that. Why can I do ridiculously high reps and ridiculously high weight on the lat pull down when it comes to a closed chain exercise like a chin up or a pull up, and it's like I've never even done it before in my life? Completely different stimulus to the joint. It can't handle it, okay? That's why we prefer using closed chain as the majority of your exercise, then use open chain to supplement the muscular on top of it, okay? So your closed chain exercises like your push-ups and your chin-ups, etc., is a much better choice for movement, as this will improve the joint. You just can't get as much weight through it, okay? That's pretty much where I'll leave it there. This is me working primarily in rehab for a good 4 years now. Came out of competitive bodybuilding and strength training into rehab. So obviously my first few clients I'm working with and learning off, bodybuilders and strongmen. So I've got good experience working with that. And I actually found most of their issues because they're only doing open chain exercises. And I still see it to this day as a fitness educator, especially teaching rehab and functional training courses. It baffles me. Like I'd get, let me give one example. When I used to teach Cert 3 and 4 fitness, I remember I had a competitive physique athlete. So this lady was mid-20s. She was a professional bikini competitor. So she looked the part. She was slim, had some muscle tone, bouncy bum that they all want, nice slim waist. So she looked fit. My God, one of the weakest people I've ever met. Seriously, like super, super weak. I'd get her into a push-up or a plank position. I could see the dysfunction. Like, all right, put your hips here, shoulders here, and I'd get to the ideal plank or push-up position, and she'd crumble. Just like, I can't hold that. That's because it's open chain exercises. What they do is they segment and they train body parts and joints. Right? So today's legs, today's chest day, today's back day, and they separate the body like this. When it comes to using the body as one full closed chain movement, it just doesn't work and they just crumble. Whenever I teach rehab courses, it's really cool because you come into it, they're either 2 to 3 day courses, and there are some really fit guys there. Some of these guys turn up and I'm obviously in the fitness industry, so obviously some really muscly, strong looking fit dudes turn up. By the end of the weekend, it's so humbly seeing that they're like, wow, like when you get to nitty gritty of each one of these joints, how do we assess it, what the dysfunctions are, how to correct it, they're just like, wow, like I had no idea how weak and dysfunctional I am until you try get me switching on these little stabilizers. It's because they're not using it in a closed chain sense. They're so focused on open chain exercises to look the part aesthetically, but the body doesn't work as a functional being. It doesn't work. And I find that really fascinating. And it's nice to see that most people that I educate in these certifications actually come away from it going, cool, I now have something to work on. You've highlighted, I guess, a missing gap, a hole in my training. It's really cool. Next slide. Any questions on that? Open and closed chain exercises make sense to you guys? Yeah, cool. The mobility stability partnership, one of my favorites. The picture you're seeing there is Mike Finch. He is the creator of Animal Flow that we do on Wednesdays and Fridays. I've been doing Animal Flow for many years and I love it. He works very, very closely with my boss at my education company, and that's how I sort of got into that world. And how do I lead into this? Something like Animal Flow really, really is king when it comes to how mobility and stability is obtained. Okay, now, it's quite tricky, and because obtaining mobility and stability is one of my favorite things because of how tricky it is, and you really got to understand the partnership between the two, really effectively program it to yourself or to someone else so they get the best out of it. Now, I'll say in recent years within our fitness industry, mobility and flexibility has been skyrocketed. I hope you agree and you can see that everyone's focusing on mobility, yes? But not many are focusing on the stability part of it, okay? And that's where problems arise. And I will say, one of the examples I'll use, before I say it, I love CrossFit. I do CrossFit workouts quite a lot, but where they went wrong throughout a big part of CrossFit's world was so much focus on mobility. Huge focus on mobility, do all these mobility drills, then go bang, straight into a WOD, straight into a heavy lift. But what happens is lack of mobility happens because of a lack of stability, right? So if your nervous system, so your computer, can't see safety in a joint's range, it won't allow you to move there, all right? So if I'm reaching my arm back, loaded or unloaded, whatever, my nervous system doesn't see safety in holding that joint where it needs to be with the load that I'm using. It's going to say, no, don't do it. I can't go back there. So what you consciously feel is lack of mobility. Oh, I'm not flexible, okay? Example in my career, I know everyone's career's got these funny little things that customers come out with, is hamstring flexibility. God, like everyone thinks the hamstrings are super tight. It's such a myth. Rarely will I see someone that actually has legitimately tight, short hamstrings. It's because most people have lost the ability to hinge at the hip, what we call eccentrically load the hamstring. So they're not using the hamstring. Hamstring becomes very, very weak, lays dormant, and it's harder and harder for the brain to access the hamstring. So what happens is as you bend over and someone says, can you touch your toes? You got to attempt it and you get to your shin, go, oh, I'm not very flexible. I have tight hamstrings. I go, okay, what's the huge amount of activity that you're doing to cause that? Most people aren't exercising to the level to cause tightness in the hamstring. What it is, as they're bending over, the hamstrings will get to a certain length of a stretch. It says, that's as strong as I am. If I allow this muscle to stretch anything further, I'm not strong enough to hold on to it. So I don't know what's going to happen. Therefore, I'm going to hold it here. What you consciously feel is a stretch, a tightness. I'm immobile. I'm not flexible. So what you've got to do is there's a partnership there. You've got to be mobile, train stability. You've got to be stable, keep mobile. We see how that's sort of confusing. And that's where the system that we've created at True T works. That's the next presentation, that you've got to open the body up just enough so it's not dangerous, right? So the more mobility you gain, less stability you have, which increases your risk of injury. So in a workout sense, so when you come into the gym and you guys foam roll and trigger point and do your stretches, hopefully it's just enough mobility that it's not dangerous. It's just it's like a step through a new door. Now you have about 20 minutes, you have about 20, 30 minutes that muscle's relaxed and lengthened. You can then alter how that your brain perceives that muscle. I have 20 minutes to activate opposite muscle, then integrate it into your workout, and get these tight muscles, I guess, working in a big functional loaded exercise under the barbell or the kettlebell or whatever we're using. So then when you recover from that workout, recovering through stability, and if you're gaining stability through a joint, mobility exercises we did before the workout are permanent. Okay, it's a permanent thing. Now, let's say you just do mobility, all right? Even better, you go see Chris, our massage therapist. You go see Chris. He releases, massages, stretches you out. You feel good. You leave, but you've only got 20 minutes because remember I said your nervous system doesn't see safety, which means eventually and inevitably the muscle will just tighten back up. And it usually tightens up a little bit more than it did previously. So it is absolutely essential that after mobility, you have to change the way that joint moves. It means you have to activate the opposite muscle, and then you have to strengthen that new area that you couldn't access before. When you get strong in that new area, it becomes permanent. Okay, just looking at my notes. I've said everything I need to say. So why Animal Flow works so well is it works the two at once. All right. So you've got to look at a joint like a seesaw or a tug of war even. You have a muscle on one side of the joint and a muscle on the other side. Now, if you've got an imbalance, right, say you've got a tight chest, your shoulders are caved in. That means the muscles below your shoulder blades or in and around your shoulder blades are stretched long and weak. All right, so tight and short, long and weak back there. Come on over, man. And so what happens is I have to release and lengthen this and strengthen and shorten back there. Where Animal Flow goes right is it does the two. But as you're moving through these Animal Flow movements and you're stretching and jumping and doing all this stuff, in a second, Zach, works that partnership perfectly. So you're using your muscles, you're using... Ends here, by the way. I'll invite him to chime in on anything extra I'm saying. So I'll get back to it. So Animal Flow uses your muscles to push into the joint's range. That means as you're getting stronger and flexible by moving into these movement patterns, muscles gaining stability, forcing the opposite muscle become more mobile and more flexible. All right, so it does the mobility and stability partnership perfectly at the same time. It doesn't have to be separated. That's why I love it so much. So to a real world application is I use myself. So I stopped competitive bodybuilding at 22, and I am 6'1". So normally I shouldn't be flexible, all right? Still get people look at my squat patterns and go, I don't know how a guy or your height can get so low. What stretches do you do? I'm so sick of people asking me, give me your stretch routine. Honestly, I don't stretch, I don't trigger point as much as you think. I don't mobilize as much as you think. As I was converting off bodybuilding, I loved Animal Flow. I obsessed about it for so long. That's what gave me my permanent mobility, stability partnership to keep it. Animal flow is what worked for me really well. And when I transferred animal flow to my rehab clients, man, the results come on quick. It come on so quick because I'm working with how the brain's perceiving the body. I'm carefully mapping how the brain sees the body. At the same time, you're using your muscles to create both mobility and stability at the same time throughout a full body movement, reaching into joint ranges that you don't normally do, right? So animal flow is king of king, and it will make you permanently flexible for a very, very long time, right? It far outweighs stretching, trigger point, massage. People will argue with that, but I'm sticking with that. It works the best. Okay, Zach. So if you're saying, for example, if you mobilize the hamstrings, you then activate the hip flexors shortly after to keep the chains to the hamstrings. 100%, yes. So what Zach's saying there, guys, is you have antagonist muscles. All right. So the seesaw, a joint. Right? If you imagine it's not a seesaw, no, not a seesaw. What's the children's playground?
Yeah, it's a seesaw.
It's a seesaw. I haven't been kidded for a while. So a seesaw, all right? The middle point of a seesaw is your joint, all right? So let's say it's your hip. And then you got the seesaw that acts like that. So that's saying if you're mobilizing the hamstrings, you've got one fat kid on one side of the seesaw, and one really young, skinny kid on the other side.
Young Tim.
Young Tim, yeah. That's your weak hip flexors. So what you do is you make this kid lose a little bit of weight and give it to this kid. It does this, right? It scales off. So yes, you have to mobilize the tight short muscle, then immediately activate and strengthen its antagonist muscle, keep it long and strong. Give us a thumbs up if that answered you.
Can I just chime in there for a sec? That specifically, obviously with a physio background, you're going to be looking at very specific things, right? You're going to be looking at specific muscles. When we're talking about this sort of stuff, try and get a little bit away from specific muscles and move more into movements. All right. So if I'm tight in the front and I'm caving forward in the front, then I need to mobilize all the stuff at the front. We can get down into pec minor, pec major, all these tiny little muscles in the neck, whatever. But at the end of the day, I need to try and loosen out this whole system and then tighten up the system at the back. So if you're looking at hip flexor hamstring, you can also look at quads, glutes, and all that sort of stuff. So I think movements rather than specific muscles, and you'll get a lot further down the track to get a long-lasting result.
Think of the assessment we did with Katie's hamstring, if you remember how I explained that one. Yeah. So next slide. So this is Ido Portal, another movement guru. He's one to write down. He's got some pretty cool videos. He moves extremely well. Ido Portal, that's a picture of him there. He is actually a movement coach of Conor McGregor, the MMA fighter. So if you look up Ido Portal and look at his Instagram and see his movements, his workouts, and then you go look at a Conor McGregor's fight in a cage, you can go like, oh, there's his coach, right? He teaches fluid human movement. Very cool to watch. But his mindset and his philosophy towards human movements is very fascinating to me. Because it aligns, it strokes my ego. All right. So what he's saying on the screen, if you can't read, I'll read it for you. If you won't, one day you may not be able to. Hence that squat he's sitting in. Many people here can sit comfortably in that squat pattern for more than 5 minutes. Not very many. As a human, you want to aim to do that 5 minutes minimum, comfortable. If you can do a low squat like that, upwards of half an hour, you're doing yourself good. All right, but he also says things like you want to know the quickest way to age yourself, quickest route to being old is don't move. Or keep avoiding movements you don't like, right, because you're not good at them. I don't like doing whatever exercise because I'm not flexible or I can't coordinate it. That's your body saying you need to learn that, not to avoid it, because that's how you get super, super old very quick.
While I literally just saw this morning, there's a guy named Nick Huberman. He runs a lab in the States on neuroscience, and he's looking at the partnership between like the chemicals in the brain, how the brain works, how light influences it, and all that sort of stuff. And he was saying, I'm going to try and look up the studies for you guys. The biggest thing that influences how we manage stress, our sleep-wake cycle, and therefore our digestive cycle, like our circadian rhythms, the biggest influence on that is movement. It's movement of the eyes, it's movement of the whole body. Like, we have to move. We've evolved to move. And the more still we are, especially in this isolated state, if you're just sitting down on the couch, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's going to affect every other part of your life. So if you want to look at stress management, you want to look at how you breathe and how you eat and how you digest things, how your body adapts in this environment, you have to move. It's just pretty much the be all and end all.
So the takeaway from that slide is you lose movement over time if you stop using it. So if you were here last night, do you remember this slide? I touch on it. So on the last slide, the last presentation, we used this slide of how the brain learns these movements. Now I want to discuss the physical side of each one of these movements, okay? So I guess like a lot of these movements you're exploring as you're learning to move and get off the ground to a stand. These are all our functional movements. Most importantly, it's showing your body how to stabilize. Stability is the most important key feature of each one of these stages that you're going through. You have complete and 100% mobility when you're born. You are full of mobility. It's the stability that you have none of. So as you're learning to move around on the ground and then eventually get to your stand and walking, main adaptation you're trying to achieve through this whole continuum is how to stabilize each joint as you're coordinating more complex movements and more complex movements. If you skip these steps, skip how to stabilize it, then when you get to about 35, 40, 50 pluses, then you start wondering why your back hurts and man, my shoulder's killing me, and all these things start creeping up is because you haven't learned how to stabilize, or over time as an adult, you haven't moved much because you don't use movement, you lose movement, you're losing stability. If you lose stability, you lose mobility. If you lose mobility, movement becomes very hard and very uncomfortable, which encourages you to not move even more. And then one day you're an old person that struggles to walk to get off the couch. Right? It's not what we want. Okay, so kids learning movement through sport. Oh yes, okay. So in the last presentation, we talked about the best sports a pre-pubescent child can do. If you're someone listening to this presentation, the best sports a kid pre-puberty or going through puberty is dance, swimming, gymnastics, and martial arts. Hands down, the best 4 sports you can do. Now, I know people love soccer, they love football and netball and all that stuff, but man, that destroys your kid. That really wrecks your kid. And I'm glad lately, the last few years, people are learning that young kids should be in the gym, because it baffles me that people are so scared to get a kid and a child in the gym for some God knows reason. But have them playing football. Now, when you're a pre-pubescent human, your brain can't map what you can't do, you do more of. You should be doing a variety of these, or is one of these sports enough? Variety. Don't obsess. Sorry, everyone else. Jack's question is, should they be doing a variety or one of these sports? Variety. Right, me being a rehab coach, the amount of parents that come to me with their kid and say, my kid's 12 years old or 8 years old and they're going to be the next football star, I'll pay hundreds of dollars to do prehab work with him. I'm just like, man, like you can't obsess over one sport. That's what wrecks the kid. There's so many studies saying getting children focusing on one or two sports, it just doesn't work. Like physically and mentally, it doesn't. Physically, it creates habitual movement patterns. Right? So they're not exploring movement, just obsessing at one thing. Two, mentally, they just, by the time they get good enough to be a professional, just like, oh man, I'm out. Give you an example is my younger sister. My youngest sister, she at 13, she was less than a second off going to Beijing Olympics for swimming, right? I was always in a fitness family. My dad coached her right up to that Olympic level. When she was 13, she was 0.13 seconds in qualifying to going to Beijing Olympics for butterfly, for strokes. Who can butterfly? No one. But what happened is she worked her guts out. It was swimming in the morning, swimming in the afternoon, swimming on the weekend, and swim some more and swim some more and swim and swim. And every coach that she saw was swimming this and swimming that. So when she didn't make it to the Olympics, guess what happened? Oh, the thought of doing another 4 years of that is just tapped out, straight away left, done, practice, done. Doesn't work. Now that she is 3 years younger than me, I'm 27, 25. Now that she's 25, she's wrecked. Like I'm constantly giving her advice for lower back, neck and shoulder pain. She obsessed about one movement. It's just swimming's good, but that's all she did, right? So she's chronic neck, shoulder pain, chronic lower back pain, and she's only 25. Imagine doubling that when she's 50. When you're 50, you're still young. She's getting these chronic pains now where she's having to take days off work because she can't do it. Imagine what happens when you're 50. Like, you're going to be shot. You're going to be dead. There's going to be nothing left of you. Variety. What happens in sports like football and soccer is there is no internal focus on movement patterns. When you're in the gym, how much focus do I give you guys on internal movement? How do you hold tension? Where does your torso sit? Where do your knees travel? It's all body positions, right? Load and speed and all this stuff comes secondary to the internal focus. So what you're doing is you're getting newborn giraffe can barely coordinate these gangly limbs of a 12-year-old kid, that their brain has no idea what the hell's going on down here, still has no stability whatsoever. You're telling this kid to run full pelt, 100%, across a football field, then you've got to do all these complex movement patterns, dodging these unexpected beings that are coming at you to tackle you. Right? It's impact running. Running's a very, very high skill impact sport. And now you're doing rotations and frontal plane side steps, which are very complex for the human to do. You're asking a kid has no idea how to coordinate that, do that 100%. Give you an analogy, my favorite analogy is if I said to you, if you've never driven a car before, right? 16, you're about to step in, you've just got your learner's license, you're about to step in the car for the first time. And I sit there and I say, that pedal there slows you down and stops you. That pedal there starts you moving and accelerates you faster. This wheel steers the direction you want to go. Now, if I left you at those 3 instructions, you'd probably learn how to drive eventually, right? Yes. Now, if I left you with those 3 instructions, it's cool. Have a little go. You've got a 5-minute play around the car park. Now, here's a V8 racetrack, professional drivers, go for it. Let's see how you go. Is that going to work out? That's what you're asking a teenage kid to do in football. Ideally, that's what's happening. So when how many people 35 to 45, 50, are all battered up and injured, and their excuses are old football injuries, old netball injuries, old ice skating, they're all impact sports. If you got these kids that are just learning to walk right up to ending of puberty, if you got them focusing internally in the gym and practiced that internal focus on how to move, that movement quality, and then put them into an external sport, not only would they improve in their immediate sports performance, they don't have to spend their wages when they're old trying to raise a family on their own healthcare. Because what really gets me is my demographic I like to work with are 35 to 60s, right? Most of those people have young families. Most of these people have injuries because they were pushed into impact-only, externally focused sports. Back pain, chronic knee pain, shoulders killing them. But their focus is their children. I would rather put my money into my family and supporting my family than my own health, because I'm expensive. If you want to hire me privately, I'm very expensive, and they don't see the value in that when they've got a family to raise. That baffles me, because it's like, I work with these people and I can see how much pain they're in. And then those people are getting their kids to play external impact only sports. And I'm like, you're doing the same thing to your kids. The lifestyle you're living when you're struggling, battling work life, family life, and chronic pain, it sucks, right? But you're doing that same thing to your kid. You're setting your kid up for future pain and agony. We've got to get people focusing on movement quality inside the gym. So when you then out practicing external impact sports, it's not going to damage you. You're not going to be a crippled middle-aged person. All right. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I do always get on a rant with prepubescent children. Last thing I'll say with prepubescent kids is, as you're going through puberty, it is the only time in your life you gain new muscle. Right? I'll say it again. When you first hit puberty, your last day of puberty, it is the only time. I see Tani laughing there. Please get your head out of the gutter. Child. All right. It's the only time you gain new muscle cells. Okay. Once you finish puberty, that's it. All you can do is improve and enhance the muscle cells you gained in puberty, which means that tells me it is more important to get people in puberty to be in the gym, learning how to move properly, build tendon strength and muscular strength on these foundational effective movement patterns. As they get older and age through life, they are way better off, both aesthetically, if that's for your ego, but for your long-term health. All right, there are so many studies out saying kids do weight training through puberty age so much better than kids that do football, soccer, netball, no weight training. All right, the people that do those sort of impact sports are crippled middle-aged old people. All right, so Zach's saying, so you're saying teach kids basic movement patterns for introducing to higher level activity. Yes, 100%. Do you think this will apply to all children? Be more specific to no, children. All children. A good example is communist countries. So Russia and China are the best examples. A lot of their sports income comes from Olympics, right? They create kids, they create these athletes, put them out to the world, and then they get money back, right? That's really how it works. But because they put so much focus in getting money out of creating athletes, they refined how to do it. So what they do is, if China does it really well, very well, as you're a kid, when you're in preschool, no matter what your sport you want to do is, everything is play. It's just play. It's just, let's get out, let's tumble, rough each other up, roll around, kids be kids, bruise yourself, break arms, fall off monkey bars. That's it. All right. As they hit puberty, as they're getting towards puberty, this is when genetic highlights start coming about. So in playtime, these coaches will look at certain kids and go, all right, you're extremely good at jumping. Right? And you start to love jumping because your genetics say your fast twitch fibers like that plyometric jump. So as you're going through puberty, your playtime exercise will be more orientated to jumping. All right. This kid over here, he's super strong. Whenever he gets a chance, he starts picking up bricks and throwing it, or maybe it's a bully and he just keeps pushing kids around. It's just naturally a strong, bulky kid. I might start lifting this kid towards the weight area, some Olympic lifting or just something there. It's still play, but they shift the direction the play will go based on these genetic highlights. As a kid, the genetic highlights will start going, I'm good at this naturally, so then they start taking an interest into it, right? And they don't do sport-specific training after puberty. It's not till puberty's done, capped off, and they're over it, that you're like, now let's really charge into obsessive training. And that creates a very, very high skilled long-term athlete. Thumbs up if that answered your question. Sweet, good. Okay, this may answer that even more. Next slide. All right, so stages of learning movement throughout your life. Okay, so looking at decade brackets here. And this is something I used to do in my personal training career, highlight people. So like I said, my demographic is 35 to 60s. Now, what happens is people that age, that's the sort of age that you start bringing my time back. Like kids are old enough to look after themselves. Careers usually a bit more stable. My focus can be on myself now. 35 to 60s are like, it's me time, right? So what they do is, all right, well, the last time I exercised, the last time I did dance, the last time I did gymnastics was when you're younger and your brain says, I can still do that. You try to perform at that same level, or you get very, very disappointed when you can't perform at that level. What I used to do in my consult process is I used to have these decades, yeah, Tana, yeah, hells yeah, all right. I can't perform like I did 20 years ago because I was 7. But what I used to do is I'd have empty blocks and yeah, Zach says old crusties, yeah, nice. And I'd get these people to write out what activity they were doing throughout each one of these decade life cycles. And you can see why you feel old when you're not old. It's not good. So when you're the ages of 0 to 10, how much daily activity are you getting? Just have a run around. How much variety of movement, level of movement, volume of movement are you doing? All day, wake to sleep, right? Like you're constantly moving, constantly playing, constantly running around. Activity levels are through the roof. 10 to 20, that's when you start playing sport, learning complex movement, you're out still playing. And so you're still building on it. Your activity level is very high. You're in the gym, you're playing basketball like there in the photos. So activity is still pretty high, right? When you hit 21 to 30, that's when it starts to decline, all right? School stop focusing on PE so much. You start going to university, study gets overwhelming, and activity starts to drastically drop. Drastically. Zach, you agree with me there? Yeah? Yeah, good.
Very much so.
Yeah, good. Uni student life, most unhealthy stage of your life.
Sitting for 8 hours a day, more.
So that's where it starts, all right? But immediately after that, when you get to 30, 40, that's when the family life starts, all right? You got kids to focus on, all right? You're running around, you got 2, 3 kids you're chasing after, and they're completely dependent on you. Completely dependent, all right? I'm thinking of you here, Tani. Completely dependent, always latched onto you. I saw them in the video before, latching onto you. So there's not much me time, right? Between the ages of 30, it's very hard to get your activity very high because you've got a career to look after, you've got a house to look after, you've got bills to pay, you've got these rascal little kids running around, you've got to entertain all weekend. We're isolated now, so kids are being schooled at home and you're like, gee, get the hell out of my house. Activity is still very low. Right? It's not till the kids can start being more independent and you get sort of mid-30s to that 40, 50 age bracket. That's when you start trying to really like, all right, you're out of my house, you're out of here, it's my time. And that's when you realize what the last 2 decades have done to you. Oh man, like that's heavy. So when you get to the ages of 60 plus, that's when those 2 decades, the 20 to 40, gets very hard. All right. And it's what you do in those periods that determine what you're doing in that old age life. Okay. So going back to these ex-football and netball players that I said I work with that will put more priority into their family, they come to me and they say, Tim, I'm sorry, $180 an hour every single week it's too much money for me. I can't afford you. I'm going to put that money into my kids. Kids aren't first. No, and it's weird for me to say because I don't have kids and your parents are looking at me going, I'm going to stab you in the neck, Tim. But I'm sorry, your kids aren't first. All right. You are first, because if you're not there, what do your kids have to look up for? If you can't exercise, what do your kids have to play with? Right? Kids do not listen to the lessons you try to teach them. What kids do is they watch you live and do that. I'll say that again. Kids watch how you live and they do that. Right? So if you put focus into, if you're a big family person, that means you are your number one priority. You are the leader of your family and your kids, which means if you are not there, physically capable to play, care for, and look after your kids and your family, money does not solve that, right? $200 a week, whatever you're spending trying to your well-being, right? That money going to your family and kids to, go on a holiday or buy them this thing or whatever, that doesn't help them. The kids don't know if you're rich or poor. They don't care. All they want to do is just have a parent to run around with and play with. You have to take care of yourself so they've got someone to look up for. But more importantly, when the rascals are out of your house, you can enjoy yourself. You can retire healthily. You don't have to spend your life savings on the doctor and surgery. You don't have to spend every cent of your welfare on the healthcare system. Jack says agreed. Investing now saves you from expensive surgery later and teaches your kids to look after themselves 100%. 100%. And something I saw out on the beach at my house the other day really grind my gears, and you reminded me of this, Jax, is I saw this kid. Immediately I say it was a fat kid. This kid was really little and I couldn't keep my eyes off him because I was like, this kid's huge. Like, look at this. I'm not going to say any more there. But his parents too, both mum and dad were baked out on the beach, massive people. They couldn't move. And this poor kid, he would have been like 7 or 8. He's out there trying to get the little waves on his boogie board. The kid didn't know how to do it. He couldn't catch a wave. He just couldn't get the hang of it. I honestly felt like going over and helping because he kept running up to his dad and saying, Dad, I don't know how to do it. Help me, teach me. He says to him, I can't, son, I'm too old. Like, not even 40. Like, it's not a good experience for the kid because what is the kid seeing? That's okay. Because by the time that kid gets to his parents' age, that's what he'll say. My dad was this age, this is what he said. So that's what I'm going to say. You're reinforcing old age. You're making yourself old. If you say that stuff to your kids, you're aging them quicker as well. All right? You have to be there for that. All right? That's not you're 100% right there, Jax. That's all there. And I get so passionate about those rants. Imagine what my kids are going to turn out like. All right, so the potential for human movement. I'm going to go straight into another rant here, okay? So the potential for human movement is this big pie, this massive chart. Right? Out of all the animal species in the world, our movement capacity, potential for what we can do with this body is huge, like it's massive, right? The traditional exercise that the fitness industry is selling you is that little red area. This part here, traditional exercise is working that 10% of movement you don't have to think about because it's easy. You can sweat easy. I can give you 30-minute met fast sweat something burpee crap, I don't know. But that's because it's easy. That's how they sell you, because your perception of what fitness is burning, grueling, sweaty, like I can't move the next day kind of thing. So for a fitness coach selling you on something, it becomes very hard, because if that's what you're expecting from fitness and that's what you come to me for, saying fitness is this, and you've got to provide me a service to get me sweating and aching and throwing up and all this weird stuff.
Yep.
Yes, but I'm not going to say that on the screen. All right there, Zach. I have to give you exercises that your body is already extremely capable of. I mean, you don't have to think about it. So think mountain climbers, burpees, crunches, running. It's just standard stuff that your brain doesn't have to think about. You can sweat away. You can work within your dysfunctions and your bad movement patterns and build on that for a short-term goal. All right. In 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the challenges are, it is not hard to lose weight. Like, hard saying it. Losing weight short-term isn't hard. It's extremely unhealthy. It is extremely unhealthy, and it is to a massive, massive sacrifice those later years in your life. It is a huge sacrifice, because what happens is, as we're getting busier and busier throughout our life, and your time for exercise and your money for exercise and all these things get restricted, people selling you fitness have to find ways to make it cheaper and quicker. It means things to take away and chip off to give you what you want is the things that make you long-term stronger and healthier, meaning effective warm-ups, proper coaching, effective programs, all these things that make a very, very strong human. The sole reason of being in exercise or in the gym comes at a sacrifice to sell you something in the short term. Okay. I'll try to remember, there's a quote that I used to love. Exercise was invented because we no longer live the lifestyles we were made to live. I'll say that again. Exercise was invented because we no longer live lifestyles that we are meant to live. Meaning someone at some stage looked at our sedentary-based lifestyle and said, as people are becoming more and more sedentary, right, we have to maintain a healthy body so we can sit at the office, sit in the factory line, do all this stuff, not wreck ourselves. So people create exercise to keep our body healthy. Now, not long after they discovered that, they went, hang on, the byproduct of keeping our bodies healthy and moving is you start looking good. You gain muscle, you expend excessive calories, means you're burning body fat. If you exercise fairly hard and quite often, you actually start looking good. Ego likes that. You start impressing the opposite sex and you go, whoa, holy, all of a sudden it's getting very easy to get attention here. So then the fitness industry, or I guess the mindset of why we exercise changed. It changed from keeping my sedentary body healthy to looking as good as I can now. I want it now, today, like 8 weeks, I want to look completely different. Now, if that's what you want, I can do that. That is easily achievable. It is so unhealthy for you mentally and physically that my ethics and principles just don't allow it. So the method that we try to take at True T is, yes, your short-term goals might drag out a little bit longer. They will happen, because my biggest focus is how you are looking and moving when you are 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90, right? Because when you are that old, when you're 80 and 90, you no care a world what you look like. Like, if you're living with chronic back pain, in and out of back surgery every 2 to 3 years, someone said to you, the reason you're having chronic back pain, the reason I'm always fusing spines or doing disc work is because you exercise like a retard through your 20s and 30s, how disappointed would you be? You like, man, like, I'm so disappointed because not only were those exercises grueling, punishing, and not very entertaining, it was now at a sacrifice. And now that I'm living my golden years in chronic pain, all right? Barney says, try Aldi on a Wednesday, contact sport. Yeah.
Social distance, Tani. Social distance.
Okay. But I get it. Our fitness industry is led that way because it's been so competitive for so long. So it's easy to program basic movements that the brain doesn't have to think about, induce sweat and sore muscles. That's the goal, to induce sweat and sore muscles. That doesn't complement the full-term potential for human body. In my opinion, working within that 10% traditional exercise is a disservice, and in the long term, does more harm than good. It's just way easier to sell it to you. It's really easy to sell to you. Give you an example was when I worked in commercial gyms. Right, I'm a personal trainer. It means I'm the second point of contact when you join the gym. Join the gym. Gym gives you a consult and some free sessions with a PT. Cool. It's February, New Year's. Let's kick the butt. Let's get my looking good. I say to them through my movement assessment, back screwed up. I got to fix it first. No, okay, yeah, cool. Let's give it a go. I give them these prehab or rehab exercises to get the body functioning well first. And then we can do more perception of exercise second. Don't like it. Hate it. All right. I've actually had people leave my service saying, I don't care about my back because I care about losing 10 kilos more. I'm like, you're not even 30. You can't even finish a fitness class without chronic back pain. They're like, yes, but the exercises you give me to fix my back, I came to you with a goal of losing 10 kilos and I want to see lines where my abs want to be. I'm like, you can't achieve the level of exercise needed to give you that aesthetic goal if your spine and posture is all whacked up. It doesn't work, and they leave and there's no care because it's not annoying them enough now. All right. If you're 30, all right, you're not even halfway. All right. You build on that. You build on it and build on it. If you exercise with load and speed, it accelerates bad movement patterns. So by the time you get to 50 and 60, you can't even move. Like, you can't even move. It's done. But for those guys that have been at True T for a while and got the hang of a lot of these complex movements, working in this 90% is a lot more fun. Like, it is a lot more entertaining than sitting on a machine and just cruising through. It's fun. So humans can do all this movement and can do so much with their body, but because we have this ego-driven, impatient drive to look good as we can right now, we're working in this 10%, and that just destroys you. What does Zach say? So do you think Animal Flow and Zoo can bridge the gap for people doing traditional exercise, enable them to unlock their movement potential? 100%, Zach. That is exactly why I have Zoo in it. The Zoo creates mobility and stability at the same time. It's very good for coordination and your physical body. It's working in that 90%, but it gives people their perception of what fitness is. It's hard, it's grueling, you're sweating. The risk of injury in Zoo is very, very low. It's extremely low. All right, it's complex movement patterns with a very low injury risk. If I'm getting you to do box jumps, running, skipping, what's some other stupid exercises?
Russian twists.
Russian twists, standard ab exercises, all this bullcrap make you sweat and sore. That's the disservice. All right, that's the disservice. There is actual exercises out there that actively destroy human movement just to give you sore abs tomorrow morning. Okay, it's, in my opinion, and I say it every time I teach a course, I think when it comes to the end of the course and people are writing programs, so they're implementing what we learned into a program, there's no such thing as a bad program unless you have no reason why it's there. So if I go up to a coach and I say, why is this exercise after this exercise? And they go, because it's hard. Get out of here. I'll never speak to you again if that's your mindset. Every exercise has to have a purpose. This is after this because of this. This is here because of that. Everything that we program here has a specific reason and specific purpose in a specific order. Not many people do that, and it's just thrown in haphazardly. Let's destroy our clients. Let's make them sweat. I haven't done my job if my clients are vomiting, and it's just like, oh man, it's not how we improve the body. We work better working at 80% than 120%. Okay. So Zach puts in there at the bottom, it's a great idea to twist the lumbar spine. Russian twist, guys, that exercise, it's the #1 never do exercise. It's like, the only person that likes Russian twist is a back surgeon. Yeah. Okay. So True T, we put a lot of focus in that 10% as your foundations. It's your basic movement patterns that have to be done perfectly. But I put a lot of emphasis in this 90%. That's why we do animal flow. That's why we do zoo. That's why we do gymnastics. That's why we do all these things. It's because I'm trying to get you out of that 10% and exploring movement. Right? If you're doing it properly, if you coach through it, it's going to be hugely beneficial in the short term, and more so the long term. Because what you're doing now, the habits you build now, the physique and movement patterns that you build now determines where you are here, okay? But truly adds decades to your life. Now, these are real life examples. Lady on the far left is real. She's 80 years old. She didn't start fitness till she's 50, all right? I would love to be like that when I'm 80. Who agrees? Yeah?
You're going to need a tan.
I do need a tan. All right, that lady in the middle, she's 94 this year. How incredible. She looks happy as day. Now the guys on the right-hand side. When I say to you, picture someone in the 80s and 90s, what do you think of? All right, those people on the right. That's because majority of their life, they haven't done anything, all right? Or the modern day old person would have just done that 10%, all right? If you work exercise that 10%, that's the old person you become. I don't care how fit you are short term, that's still the person you end up. All right, we have to work. Yeah. Panday, look up some videos of that lady. All you have to do is search 90-year-old gymnast, and man, she's incredible.
All the burpee box jumps in the world will not save you from that position on the right hand side.
Okay. So, like I said yesterday's presentation, guys, like I'm 27, I'm very, very young. So it's hard for me to say, my main focus is my old age. I'm terrified of oldness. I look at these dudes on the right and that scares the living crap out of me. That's just terrifying. Day that I can't do stuff for myself is the day I top myself, and I will kill myself actively. I will do that. As soon as I can't move, man. Doesn't mean I don't want to grow old though. I control how old I get. It's up to me, not up to anyone else. I don't just pop a disc out of my back. My shoulder doesn't just blow. I control it, okay? Investing in yourself really has the best payout and return on investment, right? You don't want to work your whole life in this career just to be this old dude on the right, all right? You want to work your whole life to enjoy what you work hard for, all right? Best example, Ben, do you remember my mum's partner, Paul?
Yeah.
Right, so we had a run-in. Paul, my mum's husband, years and years never listened to me. Never. In my back sore, my shoulder sore. I've had back surgery, got knee surgery. He's wrecked. Older army boy, had a few incidents, and the army just chucked him in an office chair for the rest of his life. When I first met Paul, he was 52, I think, very young. He'd come to me to whinge and bitch and complain all the time. I'm so sore and I can't get fit. I can't get strong. Right, so I'd give him advice. Right? I'd give him advice on how to help his pain. Too old. Too old for that. Too old for that. Too old for that. It's okay. It's all good for you, Tim. You're in your mid-20s. You can do anything when you're 20. I'm too old. Mate, you're 50. That's not old. That's not old. And now that I've built this gym up, we're getting quite successful with it. We're getting quite a name for ourselves. He's now going, all right, maybe what Tim's saying is actually something there. He's really genuinely helping people. So he comes in one day and Dan and I do an assessment on him. Crook, man, like, oh, man, worst part of life. So we did an assessment, and our assessments are what we call trial and error. So we highlight a pain point, try fix it, then retest what hurt. Was it pain better, worse? Cool. If it was better, I'll continue down that path. If it was worse, I'll choose a different path. So we probably spent an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
Then the next day, he did a prehab class on Wednesday night. Woke up Thursday, and he was just like, man, I feel fantastic. Like I haven't felt this good in like 20 years. My knees feel clear. My back feels good. He's just like, man, like I just can't believe like how quickly that come about.
Yeah, hashtag you're welcome.
Yeah, I'll send you the fucking invoice. But then what happened is they have a caravan. So they just did a trip up and down the coast. As they were heading back, they were walking along a beach on the north coast of New South Wales. We opened his mobility up just the tiniest little bit. Tiniest bit, and he slipped in the sand and tore his quad tendon. Now, a quad tendon is a super thick tendon. The quad tendon is, you need a machine to snap it. You can't, if you have a quad tendon in your hand, you cannot do anything with it. It is thick. It is as close to a bone as a tendon can get. So when someone says to me, I tore a quad tendon, I'm thinking something drastic. Like I'm thinking someone's come up to you with a baseball bat, like bashed your knee in or something. Like, I said, how, Paul, what'd you do? Because I just slipped in the sand. Can't move for 6 months now. He's got this big scar up his knee where surgeons had to go in, and he can't move. He's wasted away. He can't move. All his muscles are shrunk up. What the saddest part of this whole story is this man has always been a family first person. He's worked and slaved his career, his whole life, sacrificed so much, created huge savings, massive assets, looked after his kids, looked after everyone else. Now that he's retired, he can't do anything. Literally, he just can't do anything. He loves hiking, loves it. He's always on the internet looking for hikes. That's what he can't do. He can't walk more than 20 minutes. How depressing is that? He's not even 60 yet. He's like 55 or 56. He can't set out what he'd planned to do his whole life, meaning he'd set out his whole career. So he was, when I retire, I'm traveling the country, I'm traveling the world, I'm going to do these great hikes, I'm going to camp out here, climb this mountain, do that mountain. Can't do anything. And now he's got to the point where he said, Tim, what can I do to help myself? And I say, mate, honestly, if I'm speaking truthfully, nothing, man. You're just going to have to manage each injury as it arises. Meaning it's going to be very, very painful, very, very costly. That's so hard for me to say to someone that, man, like 56, say you live to mid-80s, you have decades left of your life that you were just going to be constantly injured. I said this to him when his shoulder tore because he was painting the house. He was painting the house. After it, he tore his shoulder. He said, what can I do with it? And I said, mate, it's not your shoulder. It's because your spine's screwed up. Nothing I can do. Just go to the surgeon when it gets too sick of it. And man, like the rest of your life's going to be pretty grim. I'm sorry. That is not what we want. All right. So my goal at True T, all right, my mission here is to, yes, I want to provide a training system, a service that equips everyday general population people, just like you and I, what they want to achieve in the short term, right? Have them build on good foundations so that short-term goal stays long-term. All right. I don't want you to be poor. I want you to be that 80 and 90-year-old lady you saw in that last slide. That is achievable. That lady on the left didn't start fitness till she was 56. All right. So you can do it. It's not too late. New technique, we've set up a system. We're taking care of you long-term. Right? That's my training. My personal training is how am I going to move as an old person. I'm gathering people with that same vision for themselves. Saying, all right, how can we work out the way I want to work out and achieve my short-term goals, both strength, fitness, and aesthetics, with no sacrifice to my long-term health? If you agree with that mission, I want everyone to say in the comments box that, yes, this is what I want. Please do that for me. Good insight, Kelly. So Kelly says, if you don't mind me sharing this, Kelly, she says, it took me to see my grandma go down, to realize that my movement is so important, 100%. Good, Jax, absolutely what you want. Tani, yes. Kelly, yes. There's more people there watching. Put a yes in the comments. But that's our goal, guys. This is your last chance to ask any questions. Ask away if there's anything there. And do you have anything to add or finish?
I mean, we could go on for hours, but I think you covered the main points there. Like, it's literally just investing in yourself now, and basically just being consistent to the process and understanding that this is a long-term longevity process to get the most out of the rest of your time on this planet. Like, it really is. So, you know, stick to the system. It's mobility, it's stability, it's strength. And it's really getting yourself set up for the best of old age, basically.
Awesome, guys. So that's that. I really hope you all liked it. Our next presentation on Tuesday is our True T system. All right. So it's the system that we've created. How do we learn more about this? Can we do a course? 100%. These types of presentations, I've got some ideas listed. I want to do way more of these if this is what you're interested in. More so, I put it on our group Facebook page today. If you want to know something in particular, chuck it on that page. Ask me, because I know what I know, but I want to answer your questions. I want to know things that you want answered. All right. So throw me some questions. I will make another presentation like this. I'll answer in great detail everything that you want to know. Okay?
If you're thinking about it at the moment or something comes up in your mind, I guarantee that it's gone through 30 other people's minds and they haven't put it down either. So make sure you get up in the group and go, hey, I've been thinking about this. Can you tell me more about whatever? Right? We've got loads of information and we're constantly learning stuff all the time as well. So we're constantly coursing up. We're learning from some of the best people in the world about this stuff. So make sure you jump on there and we'll get the best information for you.
Well, guys, so our next presentation, True T's prehab method. I will go in great lengths. The system that we've created that you guys do every day here in the gym explains exactly what we do here, how it relates to this presentation and the last presentation, right? So you get to see how our programming relates to it. You get great insight to the long-term effects. It's not just random exercises haphazardly put it everywhere. You can see the exact thing that we're thinking about. The reason it takes us all day to program the exercise.
And they asked, can we do supplements, yay or nay? The quick answer to that, which doesn't take another hour and a half of presentation, the quick answer is yes, you can. You can do whatever you like. Should you? Who knows, right? It depends on you as a person, and we'd probably have to have a pretty deep conversation about that. You know, are there things that are beneficial? Sure. Are there things that aren't beneficial? Sure. The supplement industry is one of the biggest in the world, and a lot of it is full of just sugar and water. So we'd have to get specific about that conversation, and that's a whole nother presentation entirely.
What are you laughing at, Tani? Something hilarious is going on in Tani's house there. But Panday, I've actually written in my notes, funny you ask, I'm writing a blog on supplements. So when I finish that blog, I'll make sure you get a blog on supplements, all right? Cheers, guys. I'll see you when I see you next. I hope to talk to you soon. Enjoy isolation. I know we are actually enjoying the rest. So thanks, guys. Enjoy your night. Talk to you soon, guys.
Cheers. How's it going, Dan?
Get out of here, Zach.